Welcome back to the Baseball Odds Watch podcast, episode number 8. I'm your host, Eddie. I can't believe we've been doing this now for 8 episodes. September baseball, last month of the regular season. Some teams are trying to make last-minute pushes, last-minute moves. Some teams are watching their season go by the wayside. It's October. It's playoffs. Halloween's coming. There's one team that looks terrifying to me, maybe not to you, and I know it's only September, but is the boogeyman going to come play spoiler, or will it be vanquished? Let's talk about it on this episode, and let's start with the World Series odds. Shout out to everybody who joins on Instagram Live. Biggest thing here, Atlanta's down out of the top 5. They're number 8. Milwaukee's down at top 10, at number 10. The only team in the Central in the top 10 odds. San Diego's down at 11. I'm not a big fan of that, but let's talk AL East to start this one off, because this division's going a little bit insane. We knew it would. As the season progressed, it looked like it would. But let's talk about it. The Orioles are in first place by a half game, minus 115 to win the division. The Yankees, minus 110 to win the division in second place. The thing is, I don't feel like the Yankees realize it, but the Yankees are staring a cataclysmic collapse in the face right now. I've said all season, I feel like the Orioles are going to win this division. I've said all season, I feel like the Orioles are going to win this division. Clay Holmes can't seem to close a game. The Yankees are losing games to non-contender teams, the Rangers, the Cardinals. And then you look at the Yankees' schedule strength going forward. They've got to play the Royals, the Red Sox, the Mariners, and the Orioles. All these teams are contenders. And you can't beat the non-contenders. At this point, forget not winning a World Series. The Yankees might not even make it to the World Series. And if you don't make it to the World Series, if you don't make the playoffs, right? What do you do with Aaron Boone? Do you keep him? Do you finally fire him, as Yankee fans have wanted for years? Is Juan Soto going to stay a Yankee if the Yankees don't make the playoffs, if they don't win a World Series? Is Juan Soto still going to be a Yankee next year, or does he leave? I think if the Yankees don't win the World Series, it severely hurts your chances at re-signing Juan Soto, because he can go anywhere. He'll be a free agent. There's nothing stopping him from leaving. The Orioles, on the other hand, they don't have as much to lose as the Yankees do in not winning a championship. Sure, you're running out of contract control years for your young talent, but Anthony Santander's MVP case gets stronger. We know he's not going to win it. It's going to be Aaron Judge. The guy's chasing his own record at this point. He's got the second most home runs, though, does Anthony Santander. Gunnar Henderson just has the most home runs in a season for an Orioles shortstop ever, passing Miguel Tejada and Cal Ripken Jr. But Corbin Burns has gone cold. And going cold at this point in the season for a pitcher is no good. But the Yankees don't really have an answer at the closer spot. I've heard people throw things around. Aaron Boone said they're going to experiment with the closer spot. But you need a closer. You need one bad, because you've got to be able to win the games that you're winning. And right now, the Yankees can't seem to do that. And if you can't do that with a little under a month left, playing contenders, do you even make the playoffs? Do you keep Juan Soto? I think that's the bigger question on Yankee fans' minds right now is, Are you able to re-sign Soto? He's a Boris guy. He's not going to extend before the season ends. So you're going to have to re-sign him. And if you don't make the playoffs, if you don't make the World Series, if you don't make noise in October, I don't think Juan Soto stays. There'd be no point. And then there's the Red Sox. And they've become a bit of a disappointment. Granted, coming into the season, expectations were not high in Boston by any means for the Red Sox. I think everyone kind of knew or thought they wouldn't be contenders, and then they became contenders. Now, the season's not over. There's still time, but they're 5.5 back, minus 2,000 favorites to not make the playoffs. It's a little hard to avoid. That's a little hard to ignore. 5.5 back in the wild card, but the only thing that's, I guess, a good outlook for them for this season is the only team in front of them is the Royals, who are that third wild card team. So let's jump over to the American League Central, which has been the order for a lot of podcasts because of this Red Sox-Royals wild card battle as this season has progressed. We know it's the Guardians right now. They're not necessarily running away with the division. They're still in a series right now with the Royals, where the Royals won yesterday. But they're up 5.5 now with the Royals. So, good on the Royals for making that noise a couple weeks ago. But now they're back 5.5 in that division. So are the Twins. So it's pretty much, barring something crazy happening within the next couple of weeks, it's the Guardians division. Because here's the thing. Their minus 550 favorites are the Guardians to win that division. Again, up 5.5 on both the Twins and the Royals. The Royals, they hold the final wild card spot. The Twins hold the second. But that loss of Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Lorenzen, sure, but the Pasquatch, right, as they've been calling him, he was kind of the identity of that team. Sure, it's Bob. We know Bobby Witt Jr. is one of the best players in the world, and he's obviously the best player on the Royals. But as far as personality goes, that was Vinny Pasquantino's team. And him getting injured hurt them. They're 4-7 without him. And that happened right after that Cleveland series. Luckily, they're 5.5 up on the Red Sox, who've been struggling. The Red Sox have had bullpen issues lately. They gave up a lot of runs yesterday against the Mets late in the game. But the Royals, they signed Yuli Gurriel, and they went and claimed Tommy Pham off waivers. They're trying to fill in that gap that Vinny Pasquantino being injured, pretty much out for the season, has caused them. And I don't think you can, right? Because Tommy Pham's a leader. You don't need a leader in that Royals clubhouse when you have Salvador Perez. He's your captain. You're one of the few teams in baseball that has a guy who you could iron the C on his jersey. You know he's your captain. You know that Bobby Witt Jr., though, is your guy. Your personality, your guy that keeps everybody awake in the dugout, though, was the Pasquatch. And Tommy Pham's not that. Tommy Pham is intensity. He's different. And I don't think that there was any player coming into this season on the Royals that believed in the Royals the way that Vinny Pasquantino said, or did. He said, look out for us. In the offseason, when everybody was like, what? The Royals? Are you kidding me? And now look, they're looking like a playoff team. And I know it's been pitching. It's been the season you're getting out of Seth Lugo. It's been the season you're getting out of Cole Reagans. I know, but personality helps a lot. I mean, look at the wonders it has worked all season for the Mets. Look at the wonders it worked for the Nationals in 2019. That goes a long, long way. It's one of those things. It's not metrics. It's just a thing, right? Think about the 2004 Red Sox and the comeback they made. One of the biggest things was Kevin Millar saying, don't let us win tonight. Don't let us win tonight. Because then we've got Pedro going, and then we've got this, and then we've got that. And they were down 3-0. They were down 3-0 in the series. And look what it did. It turned the team around. So, rest is history there. So, I think that injury to Vinny Pasquantino hurts the Royals a lot more than the numbers dictate. The Twins, on the other hand, have a really bright outlook. You see, I picked the Twins to win this division. They're not going to, right? They're not going to say they're not going to. It's highly unlikely that they do. They hold the second wild card spot. They're up a half a game on the Royals, and that minus 2,500 odds to make the playoffs. But you want to talk aces this year? You can't have that conversation without talking about Pablo Lopez. Because he's your one, and we've talked about other teams, even in that AL Central, right? The Guardians, that don't have an ace. They don't have a guy that when he takes the ball in game one of a series, you're like, ooh. But the Twins do. The Twins have Pablo Lopez. Top 10 innings pitched this season. That may not be a metric that some of you look at and say it's important. Here's why I think it's one of the most important. Because it means you don't have to take the guy out of the game as the season has progressed. Which also means he's not getting blown up. He's not getting shelled. He's not a guy that by the fourth inning, you're like, oh my God, we got to bring somebody else in. No, he's making it through the games. And they have a great closer in Minnesota, which means he can potentially give you 8 in a playoff game and then turn it over to inning number 9 to your closer in Duran. So you couple that with what the Twins' healthy lineup looks like with Buxton, Correa, Lewis, now Miranda, right? Wallner's picking it up. This is a lineup that could make, this is a team. This is a team that could make a lot of noise come October. And then you're giving the ball to Simeon Woods Richardson for game 2 or game 3. This is a scary team. I don't think that people are looking at the Twins like a threat. People are looking at the Guardians like a threat. When it comes to October baseball, only one of these teams played it last year, and they have pretty much the same roster. That experience matters in October. Look what happened to the Orioles with no experience. They were one of the scariest teams in baseball last postseason, and they got beat up. So the Twins will come in with experience. Pablo Lopez will pitch with experience. Royce Lewis will hit with experience and with home runs already in the postseason. Carlos Correa, he's a multi-time champion. Byron Buxton's been dying, chomping at the bits to be in the playoffs again. Then you've got Miranda. Then you've got Wallner. I'm telling you guys, don't sleep on the Minnesota Twins. Vegas is giving them a minus 2,500 to make the playoffs. Vegas is saying, yeah, they'll be there. The only thing is, and they've got they're the ninth favorites, plus 1,700 to win the World Series. I'm just saying, that's better odds than a lot of teams that are going to be there. Moving on, let's talk AL West. And this division does make me a little sad when it comes down to it. Because it's not that the Astros are running away with it and they're the favorites. That's not what makes me sad. I'm happy for the Astros. I'm happy to see a dynasty still alive. I'm happy that we got to watch a team really turn it around because it's been their pitching. The lineup is really nothing special at this point. Altuve's aging. Bregman's been on fire, but it's a contract year. You know how that goes with players. Alvarez is Alvarez. But they gave up 2 runs against the Royals in every game in that series. And that's against a team that they potentially might play against in October. They shut the Phillies out one game. They kept the Orioles low in 2 out of the 3 games they played them. Give a lot of credit to Hunter Brown. Young starting pitcher. Give a lot of credit to Framber Valdez, who's now one of their anchor guys that you can count on being there. But here's the one. The one in that rotation that is making the biggest difference to me is Yusei Kikuchi. Because he has turned his year around since joining the Astros. And I don't know what Josh, the pitching coach, is doing over there in Houston, but I feel like this is a common theme. A pitcher goes to the Astros, and all of a sudden, they come alive. They become the best version of themselves. Look at years past. Garrett Cole went over there from Pittsburgh. Justin Verlander went over there from Detroit. Kikuchi now. I mean, this guy had an ERA at about 5. He's down in the low 4s. Maybe even lower. Let's take a look at Kikuchi's ERA right now. 4.25. He was above 5 as a Blue Jay earlier this year. So, I mean, credit to them. The only thing is, this Kyle Tucker thing. The Astros, they're playing shady baseball again. Believe it or not, apparently they are. Now, this is one that I don't get. Because the thing is that they're saying is Kyle Tucker had a fracture in his shin after he fouled it off 3 months ago. And they just kept saying it was a contusion, prolonging it. And then Kyle Tucker comes out and says, yeah, no, we've known it was a fracture for a while. But even if this is cheating, even if this is wrong, what's the benefit here? It's a genuine question. What is the benefit here? He's still injured. He still can't play. Maybe you avoid like one long-term stint on the DL, but I mean he's been gone for 3 months. So I'm not sure why this is a thing. I don't see it becoming a thing. So let's move on from the Astros and talk about what makes me sad in this division. And it's the Mariners and what has become of them. Because there was so much promise in Seattle. It looked so good for Seattle. You're getting amazing years from your rotation. You have the best rotation in baseball. Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, they're pitching amazing, right? You got La Piedra too. I'm missing a name. It's at the tip of my tongue, and it's gonna bother me if I don't say it. So I'm gonna George Kirby. That's the one. You're getting amazing years out of all 4 of those pitchers. And you're still not winning. You were in first place up until the trade deadline. Now you're not. You were the favorites to win the division up until right before the deadline when Vegas was like, I smell Astros. And now you're not. Now, you're minus 2,500 favorites to not make the playoffs. And we've said it. Because of the struggles of the Astros, and because the Mariners were the only team above 500 for a while in that division, they're one of two teams above 500 in that division. Actually, they're at 500 as we speak at 70-70. It's got to be the division. It's division or bust for the American League West, right? You know this if you're the Mariners. You know that window's closing. You know there's no way that next year you have George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, and La Piedra, and they're all giving you their best years again. You know it's not going to happen. So this is the year, right? And then you go and lose to the Angels, who have one of the worst records in baseball. And then you follow that up with losing to the Athletics, who are one of the worst teams in baseball, while you're chasing the division. Chasing. You're not the Phillies. You don't have your division locked in at all. I don't get it. And it's so sad because you're wasting one of the best rotations ever. And you're not going to make the playoffs. The way it's looking, you're not going to catch the Astros. You're 5 games back from Houston now. The Mariners right now are just proof that you can't just pitch. Right? We know it's a pitching game, but you can't just pitch. And it's so, so sad to see. So let's move on because I don't want to spend the rest of this episode sad. And let's talk Dodgers real quick. Let's talk National League West. The Dodgers are still the favorites at minus 6,000 odds to win their division. They're 4.5 games up on the San Diego Padres. Yoshinobu Yamamoto's coming back. That's big news. Granted, we'll see what that does for them. He'll be facing September baseball teams, which is different. And then be pitching in October. It might be good, though, because the innings that he pitched in Japan, he would have been way over that. Same way Shota Imanaga's way over that. But he'll be sort of fresh. So that might be a really good thing for the Dodgers. But I think we can't talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers without explicitly talking about Shohei Ohtani. And I hate that, right? I don't like that every time you put on anything about baseball, someone's talking Ohtani because it makes us seem like a cheap sport, right? Like when you turn on basketball and all they're talking about is LeBron, right? But is this guy really deniable at all? Ohtani is minus 295 favorite to have a 50-50 season. And next week, I'm going to talk about this whole debate that people have going with Lindor at MVP, right? But let's be very real here. Shohei Ohtani is your National League MVP. Anybody that says otherwise, I get it. I get the argument. But the argument is an argument that you should be making in favor of Ohtani, which is that, okay, Lindor plays defense and Ohtani doesn't, which makes him more valuable. But I'd say the opposite because how long have we had designated hitters? Even just in the one league? You can name some legendary designated hitters. Edgar Martinez, David Ortiz. None of them have come close to winning MVP. Now you've got Shohei doing it. He's chasing that 50-50 season. He's likely to get the 50-50 season. And the argument is, well, he shouldn't be MVP because he's not doing anything else. What more do you want the guy to do? 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases wouldn't be enough for you to vote him as your MVP? Are we watching the same game? What about if he wins the Triple Crown? Plus 1,300 underdog to win the Triple Crown. And that's because the RBIs that Marcell Osuna's been having all season, I don't think that Ohtani's going to be able to catch him. Average-wise, I don't think he's going to catch Luis Arias. But let's say he did win the Triple Crown. Then would the argument still be, well, he didn't play defense? I don't think so. I think it'd be an impossible argument to make. So I think you got to cut that argument short and realize Shohei Ohtani is your 2024 National League MVP. Whoever's second, congratulations. I'm sure you had a great season. I'm sure it'll be Francisco Lindor. But he's not having a Shohei Ohtani-esque season. But I think the National League West, the scariest team come October in the National League West, will be the San Diego Padres. I'm sorry, Dodgers fans. I'm sorry. You guys are the most active fan base in the world. But it's the Dodgers. It's the Padres. I'm sorry. It's the Padres. Right now, San Diego's got the top wild card spot. Minus 3,500 odds to make the playoffs. If you have to play the San Diego Padres in the playoffs, guess what? Luis Arias, who's hitting leadoff, hasn't struck out more than twice since the All-Star game. He's struck out 2 times since the All-Star game. Then you've got to face Jackson Merrill, who's likely going to be the Rookie of the Year. This kid is a show. And then people are going to say, what if the lights are too bright in October for Jackson Merrill? Okay, fine. Only time will tell, because what if they're not too bright for Jackson Merrill and he continues to play the way he is now, or he gets even better? The guy has a walk-off this year, so I can't imagine that a normal at-bat in October is going to be too much for him. And then Fernando Tatis Jr. is back and looks great. He just had a walk-off in one of his first games back, so he's ready. Manny Machado is now a prolific power bat in the National League West. And fine, they don't have the best starting rotation. But if you aren't beating them through the first 6 innings, you lose. Because then you've got to face Tanner Scott and Jason Adam in the 7th and 8th inning. And then Robert Suarez is coming in the 9th to shut the door. This is the best back-end bullpen in baseball, and you will not beat them if you don't beat them through the first 6 innings. That should scare you. If you are a fan of any contending team not named the San Diego Padres, that should scare you. The D-backs are also scary. We know this. We know what the Diamondbacks do if they can get in. We saw it last year, and it looks like they're going to get in. They've got the second wild card spot right now. Zach Gallen looks great on the mound every time he takes it. He is a force. Corbin Carroll looks great. He's really coming in with his own. So they'll be there. They'll be there. But I think the scary team in October, it's not the Dodgers, it's not the D-backs. They're all scary in their own right. But the scariest, you're Freddie, you're Jason, you're a nightmare. The team that keeps you up at night is going to be the San Diego Padres. And then last bit of news coming out of the NL West is today/last night. The Giants extended Matt Chapman 25 mil a year for the next 6 years. No trade clause, no options. So he's in there for the long haul, and that's great for Matt Chapman and great for one of the Boris 4 coming into this offseason. Let's move on to the National League Central, where Milwaukee, the Brewers, they're running away. They're running away. I can't even see the division winner odds on FanDuel anymore because guess who's winning it? It's the Brewers. I don't think, they'll get the last laugh in some regards, right? They'll get the last laugh in what happened with Craig Counsell and pretty much being bought out by the Cubs for their manager. Because the Cubs are, we'll talk about it, but they may not make the playoffs at all. They're probably not going to make the playoffs at all this year. We'll see who gets the last laugh on losing to Corbin Burnes, because he's in Baltimore and he's gone cold for the Orioles. But the Orioles are in first place in that division, and they've got a really solid roster. But the Brewers are going to win their division. And I don't know who saw that coming, but it wasn't me, and it wasn't Vegas odds. Vegas odds this offseason were giving this division to the St. Louis Cardinals. I liked the Brewers, but I didn't think it'd be like this. I'm still baffled by it. Then I look, and I turn on the news, and I see things like Willy Adames has hit 5 home runs in 5 straight games last week. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess it makes sense. But that's the Brewers division. They run the Central. Now, the team that I thought was going to run the Central was the Chicago Cubs. And honestly, there's a chance they play this October. They're 4.5 games out. But Vegas says no. Vegas says minus 10,000 favorites to not make the playoffs. Factoring in that they threw a combined no-hitter with Shota Imanaga on the mound, and they do have one of the most potent offenses in baseball when they're all hitting, and Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Cody Bellinger. But Vegas says it doesn't happen, and I think it's hard to disagree at this point. 4.5 back from the wild card with the Mets in front of them in that race. It's hard to say that they have a chance, but mathematically, they do. So we can only see what happens. Not much else going on in the National League Central. Cardinals are 5.5 back from the wild card, but yeah, that's just not a good team. I don't know how, but that's just not a good team. Move on to the National League East. Phillies, we know what they're doing. One of the best teams in baseball, 7 games up in that division. They've pretty much got it locked down. Now, the bigger story there. The Braves are minus 350 to make the playoffs, and they hold the last wild card spot in the National League. The starting pitching is really keeping them alive between Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez, and Max Fried. Plus the season you're getting out of Marcell Ozuna. It's had the Braves fighting through a plethora of injuries, still in the race to play in October. The Mets, it's like every week we're changing our tone on the Mets, because now they're a half game back from the wild card. They're minus 160, though, to not make the playoff. Minus 160, though, to not make the playoffs. There's rumors that Lindor, like I said, should be in the MVP race. They're having an amazing season from Sean Manaea as well, who shouldn't be overshadowed. He's probably going to opt out at the end of this year. But they're knocking at the door again. They're blasting, oh my God, on the speakers, and they're right there again. They're 8-2 their last 10 games. But the big thing here is that the Mets and Braves play each other in the second to last series of the season. There's a lot of big series in the second to last this season. This is one of them. Because we know historically the Mets boogeyman, the team that the Mets run into a buzzsaw every time, are the Atlanta Braves. And they've got to play the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta to try to stay in the wild card race, depending obviously on what happens between now and that series, in Atlanta. I don't know what happens there. But if you believe in destiny, if you believe in magic, if you believe in the Mets, then that's the series potentially that the Mets can finally conquer Atlanta. They're going to need to do it to get into the playoffs. What do you think? Do you think they do? Do you think they don't? We will see. Final thoughts. I didn't write this one out this time. I kind of want to free verb it, but it's about the year of the traveling fan. Look, I'm going to Boston this weekend. My father is a Red Sox fan and lives out of Massachusetts, but has never been to a Sox game. So for his birthday, we're taking him to one. I went last year as well, but this year I went to a couple of different stadiums. But I went to a lot of Yankee games as always. And this year, more than any year, I heard a lot of fans from other teams. You can turn on pretty much any game this year and hear the away team getting cheers when they do something good. When I was at that Dodgers-Yankees series, they had special memorabilia and merchandise for that series because it was such a big deal. And there were going to be fans from LA at the game. And there were many. There were plenty. I wonder if this is the year of the traveling fan. And what I also wonder is if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I'm sure for the fans and for viewership and ticket sales, it's great. I wonder how the players feel about it. I've heard players say they hate hearing other teams' cheers be louder than their own, but I don't know. What do you guys think? That's my final thoughts. Big series is coming up this weekend. Yankees and Cubs. That's a big series, kind of for both of them. More important for the Yankees than the Cubs, but still important for the Cubs if, as we said, they're going to chase down that wild card spot, 4.5 out from it. Yankees, we know what's happened to them. Baltimore is in the lead in the division. They can't seem to close out wins. I don't think that Clay Holmes closes doors in his house anymore. Rays versus Orioles. Like I said, Orioles in control of the East right now by half a game. And the Rays are not a great team. They hope to continue or extend that lead. Blue Jays versus Braves. Again, that's just a big series for the Braves. They're only half a game up on the Mets, so they kind of need to win every game that they can at this point. And the Mets play the Reds. The Reds are out of it, but the Mets need to try to win to try to catch the Braves. D-backs versus Astros. Both of those teams, big-time contenders. The Astros holding on to the division in the AL West. The D-backs trying to hold on to the wild card spot, that second wild card spot, and get back to where they were last year, the National League pennant champions. Twins and Royals, a battle of the second and third place teams in the AL Central, but also a battle of the second and third place teams in the wild card. So that has a lot of implications, especially if either team gets swept. Giants, Padres, NL West series, always some implications to that. More so for the Padres because, again, hold that top wild card spot. If they lose all three, that's going to change things a lot. But the biggest series, I think, is Guardians-Dodgers. A battle of two first-place teams sort of running away with their division. So this is a potential World Series preview. Ooh, that'd be great for the Guardians who've never won one. Last time they were in one, they lost in probably the best baseball game ever. Thank you guys for listening. If you listen, make sure you share it. If you share it, make sure you subscribe to it. I appreciate it. Again, I keep saying this, but GoFundMe link coming very soon to go to LA, to Tokyo, and watch the Dodgers and Cubs for Baseball Odds Watch. So, signing off for Baseball Odds Watch, I'm Eddie Virgil. I will see you guys next week with episode 9.